Comiket, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, anime event in Japan. In fact, this event is so massive that it actually occupies more event space than both Anime Japan and the Tokyo Game Show combined. Attended by people from all over the world as well, this event has seen such insane levels of participation that in December of 2019, it actually saw participation levels of 750,000 people, 32,000 indie circles or booths, as well as 144 companies attending the event. That said, this was all back in 2019, before certain events made it impossible for people to leave their house, let alone travel overseas. And while 2 Comikets have been held since then, these 2 were largely inaccessible to travelers and have been used as a beta test, you could say, of how well this event could handle this new world order. And while there have been slip-ups along the way and they were not the best, we slowly saw the event slowly ramping itself up to the point where there was hope and optimism that maybe one day this event could be open to the world again. And sure enough, in the December of 2022, in the last 2 days of the year, this event was for the first time since 2019, finally opened up to the rest of the world along with the opening of the country itself. And this brings us to the important question on this video itself. Now that the event has finally opened to the rest of the world again, how good is it and how much has changed? Let's find out together. Though that said, I want to preface this video by saying something real quick, and this is not going to be a commentary of the be or end all of the event, more so a review of what the event is like now and if present trends keep up. This might be what we will see going forward, although this year seems to be in a phase of a trial and error, so we might see things change quite a bit going forward. We don't know. Next thing we know, there might be a giant death robot at the next Comiket. There's no way for us to tell. So those of you who are quite in the know of the event might have already realized from the way I put it, but yeah, the event is indeed 1 day shorter than it used to be, going from the 3 days of the past to only 2 days now. This is in part due to the fact that they need to keep track of more people to prevent the spread of certain, infection clusters, so as a result, in order to reduce the stress on the volunteers, this has become a thing. And as a result, the number of doujin circles, or the indie fan-made content circles, if people don't know what doujin means, has been reduced, going from the 32,000 that it used to be to only 20,000 in this last 2 Comikets at least. Secondly, and this is the thing might affect even more people if anything, is the fact that the event has gone from free entry to paid tickets only. Now, the official reason they've given for this is that due to the reduction of number of days and the reduction of the number of people that can attend the event per day due to the safety regulations that are now newly in place, they actually can't get sponsors that were as big as before, and therefore, in order to be able to keep the event even running in the first place and cover the cost, that they do have to start charging for tickets in order to ensure that the event can flow. Now, whether this is true or not is something that will be hard for us to confirm, but here's what we do know about the ticketing system itself. First up is the fact that the tickets are only being sold online, meaning that if you go to the venue without having purchased and acquired a ticket online prior, you'll most likely be refused entry with no way to get a ticket then, so you're most likely going to want to make sure that you, maybe about a month or so before the event itself, go onto the Comiket website, make sure you check when the ticket sales begin, and remember to acquire the ticket before you actually, fly for the event. Though that said, from what I heard from people flying in from overseas at the time, apparently getting the tickets was quite difficult due to the fact that they sold out really quickly, so there is a possibility that you might have to camp on the day or even the hour of release itself in order to get it, but I'm not too sure exactly when, but that might be something you need to take note of. And this brings us to our second point, which is the fact that apparently the tickets for people living within Japan and those coming in from overseas are in a separate bucket. And this is quite important because for those of you who actually want to attend the event really early, like to be on the first in to buy whatever you want before it sells out, this might be a bit difficult with a foreign overseas ticket because of the fact that the earliest tickets and the earliest times that you can enter the event are all in the local or people living in Japan only bucket. So this bucket would sell out first, and then the next batch of timings which are available to both buckets would then be sold. Meaning that if you're one of those people who's really in a rush to attend the event early for some reason, you're most likely going to need a Japanese phone number, or at least someone who has one who you can lend it from to create an account to use the separate Japanese ticketing software in order to purchase the ticket and thus be able to enter the event early, because you need your own account, which means that you need to also get a Japanese phone number for the account creation as well. Don't make sure not to use like someone else's account because their name will be actually printed on the ticket, which means that you wouldn't be able to use that ticket. So that's something to take note of. That said, this means that for most people, it may not be a bit of a problem at all. But for those who are really in a rush, I would recommend you find a way to acquire the tickets from within Japan. Otherwise, it's gonna be pretty tough to get in as early as you would want to. This has proven to have been a controversial decision among a myriad of people for a myriad of reasons. First of which being the fact that this event has always used to have been more for the people, by the people, in the sense that most of the organizing committee, if not all of it, is made up of volunteers, and so the fact that this free to enter event, which has been largely organized by volunteers, is now starting to charge money for it, makes it feel more corporatized, which is something that makes a few people feel icky about it. But at the same time, due to the fact that the new normal makes it a lot less sustainable, there are many people who also see it as being something where you need to chip in order to help keep the event alive. So it's been a bit of a mixed bag for that one. Then there's also the fact that a lot of people are complaining about the fact that the tickets have now been separated into the overseas crew who can't really get the earlier tickets, and the Japanese crew who have the ability to get a lot easier access to the event. So that has been a large point of complaint as well. Then there's also the fact that a lot of the queuing before the event, the dramatic queues that you used to see in the past in videos and all that, is also gone. So one of the hallmark, I don't even know if I'll call it a good thing, but one of the hallmark icons of the event is gone, which depending on who you ask, this is probably a good thing. Like the toxic queuing culture that used to exist in the past, like it used to go very deep how like messed up the queues were with people doing all sorts of illegal shit, and companies actually in the background funding people to do some of the very illegal stuff that they did in order to get into the event just that 5 minutes earlier. So the fact that most of this is gone is something that personally I would say is a good thing at least. I mean, like, we could probably do an entire like full video on like how toxic all of the queuing in the past behind the scenes where most people do not see, and that the organizers of the event like to pretend doesn't exist even though they're feeding into it. Like all of that, we could probably make an entire video about it, but that will be for another time, I guess. But yeah, personally at least, I find that while I do not like the fact that they're charging people for it, seeing that they got rid of most of this very problematic ways of queuing that existed in the past, I can't really complain as much, I guess. Like being able to just go to the event at my allotted time, enter the event, still have more stuff be on sale unless you're unfortunate enough to enter in the late afternoon bunch, and still be able to enjoy the event for the most part. It's very relaxing compared to the days in the past where you had people like rushing off the trains at 4:30 a.m. to like beat the queue, and people who would like do very illegal shit like stay overnight and stuff like that. Compared to those days, the event is a lot more manageable and a lot more relaxing to go to. So I'm a bit less inclined to complain, although I do wish that they made the event a little more accessible to everyone, and hopefully in the future found ways to, well, make the event feel less corporatized as well with the whole charging on tickets thing. Controversial entry restrictions aside though, it was pretty nice to see that the event was still going on largely as strong as it used to be before. Like, I was there for both days as well, and if you're in the middle of the crowd on both days, in the middle of any hall, you will not notice that there was fewer people than before, cause the queues and the flood of people are still so bad that if you were to lift your feet off the ground in most places, you'll probably still get pushed around by the crowd. That, and it was pretty cool to see that most circles of all genres were still participating. That like even though they had reduced the overall number of circles that could participate in the event, they did try to ensure that all genres got their fair level of representation. Everything from your original artworks or artworks based off specific anime series, to music or even like military or train stuff, and even some like tourism related stuff where people within Japan were going to the most like secluded, interesting places they could find and like compiling all of that. Like all of that was still being represented there, which was nice. I mean, you didn't have anything too crazy like retail-sized crafts with the leather works and the metal works and jewelry and all that. And you don't really get like displays of giant metalwork robots or anything like. Oh, right, yeah, that was the thing, yeah. But yeah, if you're the kind of person who's very interested in the huge variety of content that the event has to offer and a look at all the different subcultures that exist in Japan, you won't be disappointed. In fact, this might be the people who'll be in the most pleased, if anything, since you can probably see all of that, except that instead of it being like spread across 3 days. It's now condensed into 2 days, so you, of all people, will probably get an easier, better chance to see more of what the event has to offer, although you wouldn't get as much of an interesting like depth into each individual subculture. And by that I really mean that there's a lot of different subcultures that are being represented. Like there's not only the train and military otakus I mentioned before, but you also have people who are interested in all sorts of different retro stuff. And I don't just mean like those retro hipster gamers who go like, oh yeah, I played Cheetah Man on the NES back in the day. What? You played on the PC? On an emulator? Yeah, I don't just mean hipster dweebs like that, but I mean like in general people who are interested in retro stuff, like people who are interested in motorcycles, how to maintain them, the specs. They will just detail all this very old motorcycle specs, which may seem to not be as related to the event, but we all have to remember that this event used to be just a thing for like different subcultures to basically put up their stuff and find people of common interest who can gather together. So it's a bit more related, I guess, than most people would like to think. Then you also have very interesting stuff like I found this book, which, not to like specifically promote this circle or anything, but they actually released a book about the retro vending machine museum in Japan, and it actually details like quite a lot more about the museum itself, which is located in Kanagawa Prefecture, detailing everything from like the individual prices on every single machine to when it was made, and somewhat interesting like facts and trivia about each individual machine, and the stuff like that which are also pretty interesting. So if you're very interested in the event overall, it's like Comiket itself, I do recommend that like you go and give this kind of stuff a check as well. I know I'm sorry, I'm going a bit of a tangent, off on a bit of a tangent, but like I don't know, I find that like circles like this are a good way to learn more about like the country, as well as like the different stuff that the country has to available for people to see and get to know. You know, rather than asking a YouTuber who doesn't even live in the country, or who has never been to Japan and can't speak the language, or even a Japanese YouTuber who probably doesn't have much of an expertise as compared to these people in the field, and like tries to talk as if they know everything. Like compared to them, like, you know, even like people like me, I don't really know much about stuff like this, but these people do, and they really put out a lot of interesting stuff. So like it's nice to me to see that like there are so many people out there who are, or all these different like subcultures are still actually getting more or less fairly represented within the event. So if your goal is anime stuff, the event is still as lively and as vibrant as it has always been. Like the corporate are there, the huge amounts of like doujin circles and are all there as well. And if you're interested in everything else, like all the weird stuff you could find at the event, they're all still there to some extent as well. Like the event overall is smaller, yes, so everything is on a smaller scale, but you'll be pleased to know that if you go for the 2 days, you'll most likely find what Comiket has always been about, just a bit more condensed. So personally, I feel like while there are some problems with the way they're holding the events now, those do have a potential to be changed. And on top of that, the event itself is more or less still as strong as ever, although being a bit shorter than before. I mean, you can even find weird stuff like I don't even know if I can show this on YouTube, but just to make sure it gets viewed, but yes, this is a thing indeed that you can buy at Comiket. I don't know why, but hey, people put out what they love, and you can find all of this weird stuff at the event itself. It's all there. And the cosplayers are all still there as well, in case you're wondering. I'm not gonna put up pictures or like videos of them here just in case, other than this one guy who did a pretty weird job about it. But like overall, everything is still there. The cosplayers as well, they are all still more or less using most of the previous like display and like, well, grounds that were used for photo shoots, like the gardens outside, the Rainbow Bridge. They're still gathering there as if like everything that happened in the last 2 years never really happened, and it's a little worrying, but also very, very heartwarming to see that it's all slowly going back to normal. So if you're there for the cosplay, it's all there. If you're more or less like as good as it used to be, if you're there for everything else, it's all there as well. So I would say that if you are interested in Comiket in general, and we're thinking whether or not to visit it after everything that's happened, I would say yeah, go for it. Like everything that is there and that has made the event what it is still there. Although you might want to take note of the things I mentioned at the start about the entry to the event being very different from what it used to be. Although, yeah, for that one, it could very well change by the next Comiket. I'll probably do like an update video, maybe like a month or so before the next one, if there's a need to like rectify any of the points, and just to put out something like, this is what's gonna happen this time, because I really don't know, because everything has been changing every single time. Like the first Comiket they had after the pandemic hit, which was 2 Comikets ago, people were likening, like, because the entire convention area split into the east and the west, they kind of like locked off the east from the west for like hours on end, whereas in a usual normal Comiket it would have been open within like the first 30 minutes of the event. So people were even likening it to like the Berlin Wall going down. It's a bit insane, but yeah, stuff like that has been slowly being rectified over time. So everything I've been mentioning now might still be up for change. I'll probably do an update video, and I'll probably do a separate video as well about the interesting things that happened this Comiket, so as to keep this video more concise and about like the changes specifically. And then we'll have a completely separate one which I'll release within a day or two, hopefully, if I can get everything done in time, stating some of the interesting stuff that happened that you might probably not see happening again, maybe, or just interesting stuff in general that was at the event and that people could like, you know, get a bit of an after action report of the event itself. But yeah, I have a Twitch channel. If you actually want to ask me more about like anything that happened at this event, you can feel free to ask me there as well. Like I can do my best to answer it. Like I've been going for Comiket, like every single one without fail, for like the past 10 years? Fuck more. But yeah, for about the past 10 years. So more or less, if there's anything you want to ask, I can probably answer it, although nowadays the stuff is very different, so who knows. Or if you want to know more about the dark side of Comiket, you can let me know there. You can let me know in the comments. I'll probably like do another video on how weird it used to be in the past and how messed up it used to be with all the underhanded stuff. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be going now, so you all take care. Have a good day and see you on the next video maybe. So bye bye.